Welcome to China Paradigm, a show powered by Dashi Consulting, where we interview seasoned entrepreneurs and experienced managers in China about their business and experience in the country. Hello everyone, I'm Matthieu David, the founder of Dashi Consulting and its podcast, China Paradigm. And today I am with someone I'm very impressed by when I looked at the resume, Dr. Renata Thiébaut. You are partner and head of business intelligence of Web2 Asia since 2013. On the side, you're a researcher at Harvard University, and you have a PhD from Jiaotong Daxue in law. So that's why I'm saying that I've been very impressed by your resume. But we are here to talk about Web2 Asia. Web2 Asia is a TP, so Taobao partner, or Tmall partner. You will tell me which formula we need to use, which is an official name for companies which are able to represent companies and sell on their behalf and manage marketing budget, media buying on Alibaba. So you need to be accepted by Alibaba to get this name, TP. Size of the business, you started in 2006, so 13 years ago. It's about 200 people now. You can work in 11 languages, and you have worked for companies like Mark & Spencer, Esprit, Bosch, Swarovski, Intersport, and one I'm very interested by, Metro, Aldi, HIP, and the ones, Jellycat, you owned a reward for by Alibaba, and I hope that's something we can talk about. Thanks, Renata, for being with us, and could you tell us more about Web2 Asia?
Thank you, Matthieu, for welcoming me today. So Web2 Asia is a full e-commerce provider. So we have through three different core services. The first one is the market entry strategy for foreign brands that want to open an online shop in China. The second service is the e-commerce operations itself. So like you said, we have around 200 staff that take care of the design of the shop, also customer service and campaign preparation. So we have the whole ecosystem to offer to our clients, especially foreign clients that want to come to China. And the last service is digital marketing, because it goes hand to hand with e-commerce to leverage the sales. We've been in the market since 2005, and we are doing more marketing at that time. So a couple of years ago, around 8 years ago, we switched to do more e-commerce operations. And we were one of the first ones to do cross-border e-commerce in China. So let's say we have a very deep expertise, especially in cross-border e-commerce in China. Since the beginning, that everything was manual, we need to collect ID cards manually. It was a bit complicated in the beginning, but now we nailed down the whole process. And we've been awarded a couple of prizes from Alibaba Group. The latest one was with Aldi. And we won the Innovation Prize from Ulama, which is Alibaba's food app. And we most of our clients are from Europe, are from North America. So we focus more on foreign clients that want to come to China.
How about revenues? Could you share a bit an idea of number of clients, revenues, some ideas of where you are now? 200 people is not small, so I believe you are sizable now, business.
Yeah, it is very interesting that when we started, we have roughly 15 people, right? So we had a very startup mindset and do-it-yourself. We had a lot of struggles in the past. But because of our positioning as one of the few foreign-owned TPs in China, also our management is all done by foreigners, myself and other partners as well. So we could tackle better different foreign markets, especially Europe, right? So we have many German clients, many British clients because of our background. So it was a matter of positioning, of having a clear strategy of how to position our business and define where we want to go to. And I think 5 years ago, we started growing a lot.
Okay.
Right? So now we have clients either for consulting or e-commerce operations. And we have more than 30 fixed clients, let's say.
About 30 clients now you manage operations for.
Yeah, for operations only for Tmall, but we have other services as well.
I see. That's something I'd like to know more about, is that you mentioned a lot Tmall, you insist a lot about TP, and that's something I'd like to understand if Pinduoduo, WeChat is part of your work as well. But let's go back, let's go on talk about this later. So what you are doing is to mainly manage. You started in 2003 when Taobao just started. I think Tmall was not existing. Just to think about it, it was pre-iPhone. The iPhone is 2008. 2003, I think Taobao started. Alibaba was created in 1999, but it was a B2B marketplace, and they had no B2, there are no C2C, and Taobao was C2C. And then Tmall appeared much later. So at the beginning, and you seem to talk about the beginning as if you were at the beginning, but I think you joined later. So at the beginning, what was the vision? Was it about selling on Taobao, which is like eBay, or what, like a C2C platform? What was the vision initially?
Well, the vision was a purely C2C platform. And I was working at that time with Taobao. So I have a PhD in law, and I was doing a lot of IP protection. So my role was to shut down all of the stores on Taobao that were selling fake products.
That's
So
very interesting.
yeah, so at that time, it was very interesting because there were no rules or regulations, right, to tackle this issue. And we had to do everything manually. We had to do mystery shopping and contacting the store to ask them to close. So my first big client for this type of service was Swarovski, right? So there was a very good finding, actually, that most of the products were actually not fake. They are original. So there is a big problem with a supply chain, that the factories, they leak the products. So the products are original from the factory. So there are many situations like these that China had this problem with in the past, but it has improved a lot. So yeah, I'm at that time Taobao was purely C2C, but now you can even have some brands opening on Taobao, a store on Taobao. Miranda's Care, that Australian model, for example, she opened her brand first on Taobao and then she migrated to Tmall Global. So this is a tendency actually from all of these platforms. They do not only adopt one business model, they try to follow consumers and see the tendencies to shift their business, and it happens quite often.
Initially, so Taobao is a C2C platform. That's maybe where some people would sell products, some Chinese companies would sell products. But at that time, in 2003, I don't believe there were many European and American companies which wanted someone to help to sell on Taobao. So initially, when Web2Asia was started, what was the vision? Was it to be a TP? It could not be, because it was not even existing. It when Tmall was created that the word TP emerged. So what was the vision initially? Was to create websites, to be in the digital space, and then you evolved toward the TP? Is it the story?
Yes, this is the story. At that time, we were doing more website and more marketing on Baidu, for example. And then we had to shift our business model because we saw e-commerce was booming and there would be many opportunities in this industry. So we became Alibaba certified TP when e-commerce started in China, basically. And now we are one of the top 3 TPs from Alibaba. So most of our clients also, they are referred by Alibaba. We have very good relationship, very close relationship with Alibaba, because they are the marketplace and we do the store operations. So there is a lot of coordination we have to do on daily basis.
So let's talk about some of the rewards you got from Alibaba. One of them is, of course, attracting the eyes of everyone reading your presentation, which is Jellycat. Would you mind sharing a bit more about what you did for them as a case study? For those who don't know Jellycat, it's a British toy, but in China, it seems that what you have done is that you found a different market in China. You sold on Tmall a massive number of the product. I read on your presentation, double-digit million USD, if it's correct, within a year, I believe. And you have been rewarded by Alibaba for those campaigns, the management of this shop. Would you mind telling us more about what you did and how it was successful?
I think Jellycat is our biggest store, biggest successful case, actually, because it is a small brand out of the UK. And when they started in China back in 2015, they had no awareness in China, yet the price point is a bit higher compared to other local products. So we had to position ourselves very well to have a very strong storytelling to prove to consumers they should pay around 300 renminbi for a teddy bear instead of 50. Right. So we used a lot of UK related elements to show the product was premium and to create a storytelling. And the royal family was the thematic that we used at that time. We could use also some pictures because some Hollywood actors or actresses, they give the Jellycat to their kids, and also the royal family itself. They use Jellycat toys. So we could use all of these materials to show to consumers that for foreign people and famous people as well, they all love Jellycat. So Alibaba created a video for us. We were featured in one of the best case studies of Alibaba Group. And the video was very interesting because the story was all of the Jellycats were coming from the UK to visit Shanghai. So again, content was the key for Jellycat to be successful here. And they have cute products. Chinese culture is a cutie culture. So the product is good. Sometimes, of course, we cannot make a miracle if consumers do not really like your product or if it's not suitable for the Chinese market. But Jellycat, we could adapt the content, we could create new content. We are very flexible about that. And also, every year we launch the animal of the year that is related to the Chinese zodiac. And this is very important, this localization to the Chinese market. So within 1 year, we became the top 1 plush toy in the Chinese market, and we keep winning awards for Jellycat, expanding their business here in China. So now they sell on different platforms, and also we are going offline with them. So Jellycat, I think for me, is the best successful case because it's a small company. So if you have limited budget, if you are not well known, it's much more difficult to develop your brand in China, which was the case. So that's why I like sharing Jellycat's story.
And Alibaba liked it too. They shared it and they gave you a reward. May I summarize and see the key point is that the royal family is using Jellycat. What is the key point? I feel there is something when you have an endorsement from a very famous very respected people. Chinese would tend to buy it. And second question, you said in presentation that it's not used as a toy. Would you mind sharing then what it's used for?
So we even had Chinese artists using Jellycat. We never paid for any KOL, for any artist to showcase the plush toy. It was purely because of its cuteness. So we had, for example, Angelababy, the Chinese Kim Kardashian. She was holding a Jellycat in one of her TV shows. So, of course, it was a free PR for us.
It's incredible. It's incredible for people who are listening and may not know China very well. She's one of the most famous person on a KOL would say. People would love to have her, and KOL would give millions of USD to have her as a KOL.
Yes. So as soon as they like a product, they can do some free advertisement. And we are not even aware of that. And we got a lot of feedback from consumers. And we were like, oh, what's going on? So we found out that she was with a Jellycat in one of her shows. So it happened quite often, actually, in China, not only with her, but with some others. So we could grab all of these materials and use as a marketing material to promote our brand without having any extra cost.
The thing which is surprising, and in some way, it's something. It looks random. The way you talk about it, it looks that by chance you were successful. But I don't think that's the case. I think it requires a lot of work and a lot of thinking. So what's the strategy behind it and the tactics, which were not costly but made a big effect?
The first thing that I believe was the key milestone for Jellycat in China was data. We saw in the beginning that our approach was wrong. Our strategy was wrong. So within 6 months, we had to reshift and to re-strategize the brand. Because like you said, we thought it would be a toy for a kid. But in the end, most of our consumers were 25 years old plus. Young woman going to work, and they had the need, because they work so hard, they had the need to be with a Jellycat either inside of the bags, to bring the Jellycat around to go to a coffee shop, or also go to work with a Jellycat. And this is so true, because most of my colleagues, they have a Jellycat on their desk, and they work holding the Jellycat. So we position ourselves at that time to change, right, this mindset and also our strategy to show that Jellycat is an accessory, is a fashionable accessory. So you have the smaller ones you can carry around, put inside of your bag. So if you go to a coffee shop or if you go to work, and also, of course, we cannot just eliminate the case that it's a good gifting for newborns. So we had to differentiate different audience and to work in a different communication message to these different audiences, right? To show that the product is 100% safe, you will not have allergy with the product. So content was the second thing that we really, really worked hard on to position Jellycat as the top one plush toy brand in China.
But how did you find out that you had to change the positioning? Because you were targeting children and it seems that it was not working. So you found out that the few sales you had were actually more 25-year-old. And from that perspective, with the few sales you had, because I believe it was not many, you tried to differentiate and started a campaign targeting them, and that worked. And then you scaled on that and you put even more investment into it because you saw that there was a momentum. Is that correct?
It is correct. So in the first 3 months, sales were very low. But we saw this tendency that most of the buyers and the visitors of the shop, for example, the ones who would put the product in the basket but not convert, were 25-year-old plus, right? And I think the the most important factor that year, in the first year, was 11/11. We were definitely not prepared for the campaign.
Which year was it?
It was in 2015. So the first 11/11, we sold so much more than we expected. Let's say 10 times more, 15 times more. And the warehouse of Jellycat in the UK, they were shipping the products 24/7. So, in Europe, usually people do not work on weekends, right? You have restrictions with even transportation. Trucks are not allowed um, to transport during the weekend, or especially on Sundays. So it was very stressful, but we managed to deliver all of the products we had. And from that time on, the first 11/11 on, we became the top one plush toy brand in China.
Very
So I would say that 11/11 was very helpful for us as well.
So when I'm listening to you, I understand that the shop is managed in a cross-border way. So it's Tiemaguoji, which is Tmall Global, right? And the warehouse, for people listening to us who are not maybe familiar with Tmall and the ecosystem of e-commerce in China, you can sell in China when you have a warehouse outside of China, and this is called Tmall Global. JD is doing the same, JD Global, and you don't need to have a registered company in China. You ship from a warehouse, which actually could be a free trade zone as well in Shanghai. Maybe that's what you do now with a free trade zone in Shanghai or in Hong Kong to ship. And at that time it was UK.
Yes, at that time it was the UK. We are using Alibaba's logistic network, which is called Sanyao, to ship the products out of the UK to the final Chinese consumers. But then we were only on Tmall Global at that time. So Jellycat started expanding. And this is what I tell all of my clients. I do not think it's a good strategy for you to come to a new market like China and have many sales channels, for example. Sometimes they want to open on JD, on Tmall, and on different platforms like Kaola, Little Red Book. It's always good for you to start slowly, to choose first the best platform, and then you do a trial in the market. If the product is not good, you can adjust, or the communication, right? And because you need to select a hero product for you to push the brand in the Chinese market. So we started first with Tmall Global shipping out of the UK. But as soon as we expanded our business and we opened a JD store, then we opened on Tmall Domestic, that business model was no longer valid. We needed to, again, re-strategize. So this is the message, I think, with Jellycat. We always need to rethink your strategy and think fast, actually, because e-commerce is so dynamic in China.
But it took you like 3 months before changing to see the sales were not good. 3 or 6 months. I don't remember how many months. And how did you initially, when you have a new product, and let's take Jellycat as an example, how do you get clients? It is said by many people that when you need to get clients and you're not known, and Jellycat was not known at that time in China, I believe, you have to spend a lot of money in marketing. And you say it's a small company and they didn't have a lot of money to spend. So how did you get your traffic on your Tmall? Was it still Baidu, what you were doing initially? Was it purely on Alibaba platform, Alimama targeting? Could you tell us more about how you drive traffic and why not the specific case of Jellycat?
The best way for you to drive traffic to your online shop when you have limited budget is to focus on the marketplace. You have banner display, you have keywords bidding, right? You have many different ways of driving paid traffic to your store, plus all of the free traffic that you can also have if you join a campaign, for example. And if you do cooperation with other brands. So there are many ways for you to drive traffic. So I do not think Baidu would be a good strategy in the beginning if you have limited budget, because you might not convert, right? So the focus should be to do marketing within the platform. As a rule of thumb, we suggest marketing budget of around 20% compared to your sales target to be invested within the platform, right? So it is a bit high, but as soon as you gain more free traffic, you can drop it to, let's say, 15%.
I see. I think the next question for someone listening to us and would like to have his shop on Tmall is say, yes, I'm spending 20%, but then do I have the data, or is it owned by Alibaba, and can I retarget them? I believe you can retarget through Alibaba platforms and everything which is owned by Alibaba, including Ele.me and so on. But I don't believe you can really drive your traffic and contact them through WeChat, email, because I believe it's still the ownership of Alibaba. Would you mind sharing about this investment that companies do? 20%, as you said, of sales. It's sizable. And then do they own the data?
The company does have access to the data. If you have an online shop, you have the access to the industry data and also to your shop's data. So you need to be able how to use this data for you to understand what is wrong and what is right in terms of strategy. So that's why we are 100% data driven, and especially myself, I am in the business intelligence unit of Web2Asia. So my role is really to take data and strategize the business or strategize the business of our clients. I can give you a very clear example of what I did with Aldi. Okay, we are selling milk, fresh milk and UHT milk of 1 liter in China. Sales were good, but we noticed that we are not selling as well as other brands, especially European brands. And I tracked a lot all of the attributes of this type of product in the industry, and also the top selling brands or Chinese brands as well. And we saw a trend that Chinese consumers would prefer 2 different types of milk. One was 250 ml instead of 1 liter. And the second one was milk with enhanced calcium for kids. So if you do not have this data, you are not able to understand the consumer's behavior, right?
And you got this data through, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you got this data through the fact that Tmall or Alibaba is sharing with you industry data because you have a shop on Tmall. When you have a shop on Tmall, you have access to data on the industry, but you cannot have access to all industry, but on your industry. One thing I'd like to add about Aldi, people may be surprised listening to us that Aldi is selling through a platform, a marketplace. Like Aldi is not selling on, I don't think, Amazon, or maybe now, maybe it's play now. But Tmall is a place where you open a shop. It's like a street. It's like a department store. You open a mall. You open a shop. Sorry to interrupt. So you find out the data on Tmall, which help you to reallocate your effort and maybe redesign the product.
Yes, we needed to redesign the product. We need to be able to follow all of these trends and see what the Chinese consumers want. We localized a lot of products as well. Aldi is a German supermarket, so we are very, very strong in Europe. But European food consumption is very different from China. So in China, we sell hot pot, for example, that we do not sell back in Europe. So we need to do this. We need, whenever you go to a different market, you need to have a certain level of adaptation and localization of the product as well.
My understanding is that the key advantage of Aldi is the ability to source European products, which are more qualitative and maybe at a discount price, because Aldi has a bit of an image of discount in Europe, if I'm correct.
Yes.
And the ability to actually bring in a hot pot European vegetables or European products would be the asset. That's what you concluded?
Yes, so we adopt a very different strategy in China. We wanted to be very competitive with lower prices, just like in Europe, but also offer products that Chinese consumers are used to, like hot pot or noodles, Chinese noodles. Um, we ship from Australia because of costs. It's much cheaper to ship from Australia than Europe. But then Aldi started procuring within the Chinese market as well, but with European standards. So for the Chinese consumer, food trust is the key, right? So you can manage to leverage what you do in Europe, cheap products, but very high quality, and to adapt to the Chinese market as well. Because there were many food scandals recently in China, so this is very important. And Aldi, like you said, they started with a Tmall global shop. I think this is the standard strategy. So you can test the market first. Then you move to Tmall domestic. Then you start open your own shops. So our first store was launched in June last year in Shanghai. And right now we have a few of them in Shanghai, around 5, and we plan to expand to other cities as well for more than for a couple of thousand shops
Yeah.
within the next 3 years.
Yeah, for people not to be confused, when you're saying shop now, you are talking about offline shops.
Yeah,
So
physical shops.
yeah, physical shops. And it started with Tmall Global, and then they had a few beautiful shops, actually very well designed. Are you managing them as well? Are you?
Yes, we manage the shops, and we integrated our system with the physical shops and the online shops as well on Olama or on Tmall, for example, because we also need to understand the consumers, if they were repeating buyers, how we could target these offline consumers and to drive traffic to our online stores and vice versa. And our key strategy for Aldi is O2O, right? Online to offline. And with the integration of this data from all of the sources that we have of the sales channel, from physical stores to online stores to also social media on WeChat, Little Red Book, that's what we use to strategize their business. To give you a concrete example, we were expecting to grow around 23% this year. It was a very, let's say, simplistic way of thinking last year to take things slowly and really use data to grow their business more in China. But because of the coronavirus, I think our projections are off, and they are going to expand much faster and much, much more than this. Only in February and in March, we saw that their sales grew to 20 times more than the average. Because
So you said the
so
crisis was beneficial to Aldi because people were delivered home.
extremely beneficial, extremely beneficial. For some industries, we could see an impact of, let's say, 40 to 50% in their sales. Fashion industry, perhaps a bit less, but luggage and shoes for hiking, for example, we saw a drop of 40 to 50% in sales. As for other mommy and baby products and also food-related products, then there was a big increase. So in all this case, I can tell you it was around 20 times more than our standard sales.
Interesting. What about now, the post-coronavirus? Because people who may listen to us who are in Europe or in the US may not know, but in Shanghai now, we are going out, bars are open, even nightclubs are open. So everything is working. Everything is wearing masks, but everything is working. Is back to normal, or people keep their habits?
Right now it's still very, very up because not the whole China is normal, right? So in big cities like Shanghai, it's slowly going back to normal. But even though it's not 20 times more than the usual sales, it's going to be much higher because you gain awareness, right? So people who do not shop from Aldi before, now they know Aldi and they probably like the product, so they will keep shopping from Aldi. So that's why it was also beneficial in the sense that the brand will gain awareness and also more buyers. And our delivery is very fast. It's up to 30 minutes
Wow.
within, Shanghai, for example, if you're nearby. And since we are going to expand also to other cities in China, this will spread all over the country. So we'll keep these 30 minutes, right, for consumers to be comfortable if they want to either shop online and receive their products in the office or at home, or if they want to pick up offline.
How did Tmall react to the fact that you open offline shops? Because in some way, you are driving traffic out of their shop. I mean, you are getting your independence, which is something that I feel Alibaba tries to avoid. Even working with JD, they may try to avoid that their brands work with JD.
Right now, I do not think that the marketplaces are as concerned as before for two reasons. One is we are facing a new era of new retail. So this is the trend. Even Alibaba is doing the same with Hema, for example. So we needed to change the mentality that offline competes with online. It really goes hand to hand because the more people knows your brand, the more people know your brand, they can also go and shop online. So you can leverage also the data you have from offline to convert to online. So there are many ways to do this. If you offer QR codes with coupon discounts, for example, or when you do an online campaign, you can have offline events to drive traffic to your online shops. So you really need to be creative when you do O2O, when you have different sales channels, instead of thinking that it will hurt your online business, but actually it will create more awareness to drive more traffic and business to your online shop.
How do you organize your team? That's something I'm curious about. You seem to expand in very different directions and to do a lot of different things. Managing a Tmall shop is not only setting up, technically speaking, the Tmall shop, is creating banners, it's about managing PPC, managing media buying, it's about also doing brand reputation on Baidu, and it's listed in your presentation, for instance, and social media, and now offline shops. How do you organize your team to have the talents? Could you help us understand, do you have designers inside, or do you actually partner with other companies?
We do mostly in-house, right? And we have actually we did a change management implementation in the company, because before it would be very up-down model that we had in the company. And let's say you had director and account director, then you had the manager, and you had different people, like a designer, customer service representative, to do different tasks, and nobody would be aware of what the other ones are doing, which is not too good for e-commerce, because we all need to speak the same language and to be 100% aligned. So we grow the sales, and also we avoid returns or problems that may arise with e-commerce. So 2 years ago, we changed our management structure to be more project-based, and it is a flat management, that is called. So we divide the teams by different projects, and they only take care of projects that are in similar categories, so they can have more expertise. For example, if you have a food client, all of the team members will take care of food-related clients, or mom and baby, or fashion, right? Because if you do food and fashion at the same time, you cannot really focus and have a concise strategy, because it's completely different. So that's how we work. So even though we have people to do different tasks, all of them need to be aware of what they are doing.
In terms of talents and functions, how a campaign is organized? You have a creative person who is going to design the campaign. Then you have some people who are activate the campaign. Would you mind to describe a little bit the different steps of a campaign and the different people involved in it? It seems to be a lot of different talents and resources.
Yeah, it requires a lot of resources. I would say between 7 to 10 people per project, because customer service is so important in China, to not only upsell the product, but to for crisis management as well. If the product is broken, right, to avoid bad reviews. So it starts from customer service, and you need to train them. They really need to understand the brand and all of the characteristics of the product, right, because they are the face of the brand. They really represent the brand. And then it goes to design. You cannot write a wrong price on a design, for example, or to set up a wrong price within the shop. So you always need a double to triple layers of double checking, because the campaign period is so stressful that you need to have everything in place before midnight, right? If the campaign starts at midnight. So you need to allocate one project manager who will coordinate with all of these different people in the team. So we divided the campaigns, to give you a concrete example, into stock. First, we do the stock preparation and also the pricing strategy. And then you have the pre-warming campaign. So only a few selected products will be part of this pre-warming campaign. So consumers, they pay a deposit and they get extra discount, or they get a special gift, limited editions, and things like that. And then you have the campaign day, which might have another set of discounts, another set of gifting, right? So you needed to prepare the campaign into different phases and to be ready before the campaign starts. It was very funny, actually. Well, of course, it was interesting, very stressful, but thinking back in the beginning of especially cross-border e-commerce, or even e-commerce in China, the campaigns, they were so stressful, and a lot of manual work that we had to do. And the system, like the marketplace system, would freeze for a couple of minutes, and you would not be able to buy the product. And then by the time the product was online, it was sold out. So these were the type of issues we would have before with the campaigns. But every year it becomes much better. I would say in around 6-7 years ago, the system would freeze for about 30 minutes. So each year it was less and less, 20 minutes. I remember 2 years ago it was only 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes. So this 11/11 in 2019, it was nearly perfect.
Yeah, you're
Right.
talking specifically about Double 11 campaigns, which are actually nationwide campaign.
Well, Double 11 is the world's largest campaign, right? So we are talking about trillions that are sold within this 1 month of campaigns. But it is not the main campaign. For some industries, you sell much more in other campaigns than 11/11 itself. We
Which one
see
do you like? Which one would you emphasize? There is a 99 for wine. There is double 12. Which one do you think is interesting and not well understood?
the main campaigns in China are mainly four. The Queen's Day, which is March 8th. Then you have 6/18. Then you have 11/11 and Chinese New Year. But Chinese New Year campaign is very good for food and beverage. For example, is not too good for other industries. So we really see sales really down in that month for different industries, or very high for food and beverage. So these are the main campaigns. And then you have the smaller ones like Black Friday type of campaign, 12/12. And then you have Chinese Valentine's Day. Back to School is a very good campaign for kids, for example, not only for backpacks or products that you usually buy for your kid to go to school, but also shoes and clothing for kids, right? So you need to think also that your campaign is not only 11/11 driven. So there are many campaigns, let's say once a month or even more, that you need to consider, and a flash sales as well, that you can be part of flash sales, that it drives a lot of traffic for your brand. So so when I talk about preparing for a campaign, it's not only 11/11, it's pretty much every month you need to have everything ready before a campaign starts.
Does it mean that it doesn't worth making a campaign on your own? Does it mean that you have to target those moments? It doesn't exist some independent campaign you want to celebrate? You are from maybe the brand is from the UK and they want to celebrate UK's Day, and then you do a campaign on your own. Is it something which is existing, or it's something you don't even have to care about? You need to focus on those big days organized by Alibaba.
No, it really exists. You can do your own internal campaign, especially if you have a CRM system in place. You can target your silver, gold, platinum members. You can offer different discounts. But it is not as big as being part of an official campaign, because you are going to get all of the traffic from a big campaign. Right, so this is the difference, is traffic wise, and being part of an official campaign will give you much more visibility within the marketplace than just doing on your own.
To share one data on Metro. Metro is one of your clients, and again, the same as Aldi, people will be surprised, but Metro has a shop on Tmall. That's very common. So you go through another distributor to sell. And within one day, presentation, it was Double 11. Metro sold 17 million renminbi, if I'm correct, if I understand the graph correctly. Because next to it, you put Tmall, which is 91 billion. I was thinking, you made 91 billion? Then I saw it was Tmall. So Metro did like 3 million USD within one day for Double 11.
I think it was within 1 hour, because usually what shops do on 11/11 much more than this. Let's say 50 million, 20 million, or depending on shops like Zara, Uniqlo, it's nearly 1 billion renminbi.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't understand then the graph correctly. It should be more, you say?
Yes.
Or maybe it's in USD. I don't know. Maybe it's 17 million USD.
It should be in USD. Because the campaign it starts 1 month before, right? So it is not a one-day campaign. So the way that Tmall does is you need to have the pre-warming part. So let's say 11/11 starts around October 20. So people start putting products in the basket or they pay the deposit. And then before the campaign starts, you have another round of warm up. It's still the pre-campaign phase. And the official campaign, it starts at midnight of 11/11, and it will last 24 hours. So from midnight to 1 a.m., we have a huge peak of sales. And then it goes down a lot. So around 1 a.m., who paid the deposit will have to pay the remaining one at 1 a.m. Okay. So this will be much less. We'll have less sales at 1 a.m. than at midnight. And then again, sales will slow down. And in the morning, around 10 a.m., you have another peak. And before the campaign starts around 8 p.m. or 9 p.m., we'll have another peak. So you have, let's say, different peaks of sales throughout the campaign. But the main one that you have most of sales, most of traffic is at midnight.
We talked a lot about Tmall. We talked a lot about Alibaba. But now JD has emerged. I think it's been already 8 years, 9 years that JD was created. WeChat is selling. You have also Pinduoduo. You may have Douyin preparing something to sell online. What's your take on those other platforms? JD is very similar to Tmall, but what about WeChat, Pinduoduo, and other platforms?
The best platforms in China are the ones that are more relevant, but you need to consider also your type of product, right? So if you compare Tmall Global and JD Worldwide in terms of, let's say, supplements, health supplements, for example, Tmall Global is much stronger than JD Worldwide. So then when a brand wants to select a platform, they would prefer Tmall Global because they have more exposure. So you need to see that JD is very good with electronics. I actually think they can be better than Tmall for this. Even though Tmall is trying to catch up, JD is very good, I think, with logistics, first of all, and also with electronics and house appliance, right? There are other platforms that are doing super well in China. One of them is Kaola, especially for cross-border e-commerce. They're very
Owned by
good.
Alibaba now.
Yes. So
That's the reason why I didn't mention it, because it has been bought by Alibaba at the end of the day. So I wanted to talk about other platforms. But let's talk about Kaola because it has been recently bought by Alibaba.
Yeah, so Kaola is a very good example. They are out of the Tencent, JD, Alibaba ecosystem. And they are from NetEase, which is traditional. The traditional business model is to have the search engine and also gamings, right? Online games. So Kaola, they adopted direct import business model to sell foreign products, especially beauty products and supplements, and they started growing a lot. So that's why they got acquired by Alibaba, but only their cross-border business branch got acquired by Alibaba, especially because they were doing very well.
So what you are saying, sorry, go ahead.
And the same happened to the Little Red Book.
Uh-huh.
It is a social media app, or it was a social media app, but now it's social commerce. You can also open your e-commerce website within the Little Red Book, but it's very good only right now for beauty products or health supplements. It's not good for house appliance or other products, right? So you needed to see this categorization. Some platforms are better for some types of products and others are not. So Alibaba also acquired Little Red Book.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Very
Yeah.
recently, right?
Yes.
So what you are saying is that platforms are segmented now. The maturity of the internet in China makes it possible to segment with JD, with its origin in electronics, keep this identity into electronics, maybe male-oriented. Tmall is a lot of fashion and so on, and you have platform for health supplements. Is it what you're saying?
This is what happens in the industry, especially because of JD's background. They were purely electronic, an electronic platform before. But this is not what they intend to do. JD really wants to grow their business to fashion and to cosmetics, to beauty. So they are doing a big push also to expand their categorization, so people do not think that JD is very electronic driven. And it is happening very often with many marketplaces in China. Suning was also very electronic driven with home appliance. Then you have Yihaodian. It was very food related before, top one food seller or marketplace in China, but now they sell everything as well. So they
Yeah,
really try to adapt and move very fast to cover different categories.
it's evolving fast. We are at the end of the interview, and I like to ask you more personal questions. That my team found out that you published at Harvard some papers. How do you find the time, and how do you find the time to cover topics like an analysis of the U.S.-China trade war, of the Section 301 China intellectual property case may impact new directives to promote the Made in China 2025. Seems so technical. How do you find the time? How do you organize your days?
I know that e-commerce consumes a lot of work and also energy from my side, but I am at a stage of my life, let's say, that I really want to pass the knowledge I acquired as being one of the first ones to do, especially cross-border e-commerce in China. And I do believe that this is very helpful for business in other regions as well. So whenever I publish something, either a book, I have published a book with them, and I just finished the second book, our second series. And I really try to be very practical.
What's the name of the book?
Yeah, the book is about the digital silk market, One Belt, One Road, how we can bring cross-border e-commerce to this area. So everything is related to my work, which makes it very easy because I want to write about something very practical and how governments and how companies can learn from China and what we have done in terms of cross-border e-commerce strategies for them to also grow their domestic business, to disrupt technology in their countries. So this is for me more of a contribution to students and to governments for them to learn from China and apply this strategy or business model back home.
It's interesting, and I do the same. You are saying we as Chinese, we did that, and I do the same with Chinese people living overseas, and they say, "Why you said we? You consider yourself as Chinese?" I feel you do the same.
I've been in China for 14 years. So
10 years for me.
I am very proud of being half Chinese, let's say. I do not look
Yeah.
Chinese, but I really consider myself as a local, and I am very proud of being able to represent China somehow in my own way.
I have a few last questions. Sophia, who you have been in contact with in my team, sent to you the questions before. That usual question I ask to interviewees. What books inspired you most in your China journey and entrepreneur journey?
I think is I like a lot of philosophical books. For example, Sun Tzu was the very first book I read about China.
Out of the
So
War?
yeah, yes. So I really try to take the main meanings and the main teachings to my career. So this is a very good book, The Art of the War, to strategize your business and also your career plans, your goals, right?
What would you like to share as what did you learn from The Art of the War?
You should not compare yourself to your competitors, for example, right? So I think there's a very good learning, even at Alibaba. Jack Ma repeats this. I do not want to be like Amazon, right? So we need not to copy each other's business model, but also try to innovate and to bring different perspectives, different offerings to consumer. Everything is about the consumer, right? So if you are stuck at being like your competitor, you are not going to provide the best you can to your consumer. So I think this is the meaning I got from the book, that even though he does not direct say like this, but this is how I translated this into my business and into my career. So
That
that's
was a
why I keep pushing hard in terms of data, for example, to really innovate what we currently do.
I remember a conference I attended where the founder of 360 was saying, I kept looking at Baidu because at that time 360 was also a search engine, and he failed. He was actually he was just an antivirus software at the end because he was too much focusing on the competitor. So we have this actually feedback from Chinese entrepreneurs as well. What do you read to stay up to date about China?
We needed to read daily, right? All of the news about e-commerce, regulations. Well, I have a law background. I really need to know all of the new regulations, the new laws regarding e-commerce and cross-border e-commerce, more specifically, advertisement law. So there are some good source, some good websites like TechNode, even your reports from Dacia Consulting. I
Thank
read them
you.
a lot with consumer trends. So I would suggest your reports, for example, McKinsey, PwC, like the ones that we can trust, right? Because you see so many things online, sometimes they are not necessarily a good source for you to be inspired by. You need to be very careful when you read the things, and the things you can really trust, and take that as a learning as well.
What book on China you would recommend to someone who wants to know more about China? Maybe it's not a book, maybe it's a movie or something else. But what would you recommend to read, to watch, to do to learn more about China?
There is one very good book about AI and China and the US. So I would suggest this book because it is about the future,
AI
right?
Superpower by Li
AI,
Kai-fu.
yes, AI Superpower. It is a very good book for you to understand the future and how to adapt your business to the future as well. Because many business, you need to go tech. You need to implement AI for you to, let's say, survive in the business. You cannot just keep having the same traditional type of business as before. So these are very good AI superpowers. It's a very
Yeah,
good
you're
book.
a second person in the podcast mentioning this book, and it has been already a very best. It's a bestseller, right? It has been very,
Yes.
very successful.
Yes.
The two last questions, I would be very interested by your answer, because you have been in China for 14 years, and you have been a spot where you could witness a lot of things and see a lot of evolutions. What unexpected success and unexpected failure you have witnessed in China, which was a surprise to you? As an example, I always use Carrefour, Jialefu as an example. When I arrived in China, it was successful. They were all over the place, and they left. They sold to Suning, and I was crossing Carrefour. There was the two logos. It was so surprising to see the two logos.
Um, I think failures can inspire us more because we have to avoid committing the same mistake. And mostly it's the same mistake that they do. They do not understand the Chinese market. So most of them, most of these foreign companies, especially the big ones, when they come to China, they adopt the same business model as in Europe or in other countries or in the US. Marks and Spencer, they had a very wrong strategy for China. We worked with Marks and Spencer before. We did social media for them, content. But the thing is, if you are not willing to adapt to Chinese consumers, you are prone to fail. And that's what happened. They had to leave China.
They had a shop, offline shop as well, in close to Zhenmin, right?
Yes.
Uh, and Zhenmin Guangchang in Shanghai. And what's surprising you actually is that even though big companies who are making so much efforts to succeed, don't make the efforts to actually really understand the Chinese market.
Yes, this is true. Plus the competition, right? So you are competing price with other Chinese brands as well. Style, if you do not want to change your style, because Chinese consumers, they do not exactly dress the same as British consumers. So they were very classic. Everything was black or gray or white. So nothing different that they could buy from Taobao, or for cheaper price, or nothing that it would strike the eyes for the Chinese consumer to buy. So that's why
For the
they did not adapt,
Yeah.
plus price point. That's why they failed in China.
At the opposite, what's success has been surprising to you in China? I'm asking this question because the thinker and consultant Peter Drucker was looking at unexpected success, unexpected failure to assess innovation, and I think you have your perspective is very interesting to that concern, to see what success you had not seen coming and which came.
I'll just say Intersport is a very good example because they resell other brands like Nike, Adidas. And this is a very difficult thing for you to be a reseller in China, especially if the brands you are reselling, they have established the business in the market. Like Nike, Adidas, they are very well established in the Chinese market. So Intersport, what they did to be the first one sports brand in China, or retail in China, was to focus on limited editions, for example, or products that Nike and Adidas official stores would not have. And also, they did a partnership with Alibaba to implement technology and to also give a better consumer experience to the buyers. So, for example, in Beijing, they have a big screen if that is automated. So whenever you pass by, the screen offers you, let's say it's a woman that is passing. So They offer woman-related products. And you can see the products, then you enter the store. Everything is touch-based. You can try on the products. You can shop online. You scan the QR code. So this is very AR driven. They use a lot of technology to leverage their business in China to be more competitive and more well-known. So usually consumers could buy from Intersport instead of the brand itself.
Intersport, so what was a success you were not expecting initially to be as big as it is?
I would not expect because they resell other brands.
I see.
Yeah, that's the reason. So I work with them for this consulting strategy on O2O and how to leverage their brands. So we had to do product selection, push different products, and then they signed this agreement with Alibaba to do special technology to leverage their brand in China. So I think they are doing very well. It's a very cool brand, a very cool case, let's say, that we could learn from.
Thank you very much. It was very, very instructive, very interesting. I have to say, I was a bit nervous before interviewing you because of everything you did and you do. You are a doctor, you have time to write papers, you are a researcher at Harvard, and you work on e-commerce in China, managing a business. That's very, very impressive. Thank you for spending time with us. And I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope everyone listening to us also enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.